Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of People Who Inspire. I'm really excited to come your way with another episode. As I always say, that on the PWI platform, I try to get really engaging individuals, people I deem to be on the right path to creating impact in society and to building businesses that will affect posterity. So I'm really privileged to be hosting Eldad. Eldad Nutakor is my guest. Today we'll be talking about brand strategy, and I have a lots of, let's say, questions around what a brand is. How do you build a brand strategy, both at the individual level and also at the organizational level? But the most important thing, as I always do on the PWI platform, is to understand the journey of my guest. So we're going to know a little bit about Eldad. Eldad, welcome to People Who Inspire. How are you?
Great. Crazy week, but I'm great.
Yeah, I can imagine. It seems that around this time, there's this craze, right? Everyone seems to be busy.
Yeah, I guess I didn't notice before. I tend to be generally busy all around, and I also tend to be busy when people are not as busy. So my busy times in the year typically starts from now to like to January, and then between like February and
Okay.
March, I have like a little bit of free time. Maybe that will change, but that's how it's been so far. But yeah, I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Excited. Looking forward to the conversation.
I'm really happy because what I do normally, I tell my guests is that I try as much as possible, to look out for people that I follow. Like sometimes I quietly follow people and I just look at their journey, and
Mm,
I see some of the posts that you make, some of your videos on LinkedIn, most especially. And personally, I think that you definitely are going to be a formidable force going forward. And so with
thanks, man.
this, I want to start a conversation. Right, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where did you grow up? What schools did you attend? And can you
Mhm.
walk us through the various, let's say, milestone from high school, to whatever educational background? And at what point did you get into brand strategy?
Yeah, cool. So I I'm Ghanaian and I'm on what we call number nine. I'm an Ewe boy. So I grew up in the Volta region. I was born in Keta, specifically Jalukofa. So that's where I come from. Um, I stayed there till I don't know, maybe I was getting to like primary six, primary five, grade six, and then I moved to Accra to go be with to live with some relatives, where I did my junior high school, last grade of primary and junior high school. Then I came back to Keta Senior High School. So I came back to the Volta region for my secondary education. Um, and I think it was at that point that, and we'll get into that, was at that point that I think who I am today started getting shaped because I met some really interesting dude who you might know, Gamaliel Ajaho, who was,
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know
yeah.
him.
So he was like, it was a pivotal point, and I think who I turned out to be. And I always say that, like, right after my parents, I think he's the next most influential person I've ever met in my life. Yeah, so I did high
Wow.
school there. Then I went on to Kenta High School to do from Kenta I went to KNUST to study computer science. Again, on the
Okay.
direction of Gamali, because when he first came to teach at Kenta Senior High, I was a science student. I think I was decent, usually like upper 25% out of the class. But I didn't want to do any of the usual things. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be an engineer, right? And I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I know I didn't want to do any of those things. So he was like, "Have you tried computer science?" I'm like, "What the hell is that?" So on his advice, and eventually even him having to intervene with my parents, because my parents at the time didn't know what that was, right? They wanted me to go to medicine because that was a path. But with his help and his intervention, eventually went into Kenya to do computer science, where I found out that I wasn't the most computer sciencey person. Like the way my brain functions wasn't tuned to computer science. It was more an art brain than it was like a algorithmic, systematic type
Yeah.
of brain. Although I think I have a bit of that.
Mm.
And that was when I started exploring. Okay, my mentor at the time said to stay here, but other things within this realm that I could still do, right? Because I didn't want to change courses or anything like that. Um, yeah, and then I found the design side of things, and then kind of like started charting that path, right? So in the end, I graduated in 2017, got my first job, and then kind of life happened, right? So that's the overview. But then I'm going to go back and then try to step to like some of the key milestones.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, so I think I was from what I can tell, I was considered a pretty like smart kid growing up. I was always in the top of my class. I was never really first though, which is a weird thing. I was always like second or third. I never know how to be like I take that, but yeah, I was always considered a smart kid. Um, but for the longest time, I didn't really have any sense of what I wanted to do. Right. So the path that is given to every smart young person in Ghana is, oh, you're really smart, go to school, go to science, and then become a doctor, right? And I've had cousins and close relatives and other people who told that path. So that was a path that was being lined up for me. Um, so throughout primary school and junior high school, begrudgingly, I was going to be a doctor. I didn't want to, but there seemed to be no other option until
Yeah.
my second year in high school. So this is like in 2009 where I met Gamali. So Gamali was a teacher at the time. I think he had just come to the school, and he was wearing a weird t-shirt. There was Barkham printing on it, so you would know this because you were part of the Barkham fam.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So like the curious kid I was like, oh, what's that? Like, so after class, I followed him, and then I got curious, and he told me what it was, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then the thing about Gamali, if you've ever met him, is that he is eager to like broaden your horizon, right? Like if he sees you have a curiosity about anything at all, and he has any information or he has any resources that could help, expand that curiosity or feed it in a certain way, he's going to give it to you. And I was a very, very curious, like student at the time because I was a misfit in all the ways you can think about. I was a science student, but then I was more interested in debating, oratory, all these things that are
Okay.
not considered like things for a science student to do, right? Um, so I was very curious. So meeting Gamali, I started hanging out with him a lot in the lab where he would spend time. And that's where he started introducing me to all these really interesting things. So I started watching TED Talks in 2009, which is crazy for like, most Ghanaian students. Most Ghanaian students didn't even know what TED was at the time. But I started watching TED Talks back then, got introduced to like, Silicon Valley, read books about, building products, from Guy Kawasaki, 37 Signals. I got introduced to writing competitions. I think I probably have one of the earliest YouTube channels or blogs in Ghana because we did a digital literacy camp. So like between 2009 and 2011, like my curiosity was really, really fed, right? So I got introduced to like so many different things, so many opportunities, so much to learn. And I think that started shaping how I thought about the world. And it was in the midst of that conversation where I was like, what do I do? Because I don't want to go be a doctor or engineer. And he was like, have you considered computer science? I was like, no, what is that? And at the time, I knew I wasn't very good at math. And the little I knew about computer science was like, oh, this is a math thing. But he was like, no,
Yeah.
it's more than that. So he introduced me to Python because Python is very easy. So I started writing Python in like 2010, 11 as a high school kid. I
Wow.
got stuck at some points. I got stuck at loops and I kind of gave up because I couldn't figure out like how to draw a Christmas tree with a for loop. But then I got introduced to so much, and I started preparing for my computer science degree in high school. So I started learning how to type, started
Okay.
reading books on algorithms, started writing HTML, CSS code, like
Wow.
really, really, really early on because I was curious. So once it fed me all that information, I just kind of went for it, right? So that happened, which was really, really cool. And then I went on to do computer science because I was prepping for this, like, my entire high school, right? My parents, on the other hand, didn't was like, what computer what? And I think and I think the only reference they had of somebody who did computer science was somebody in our village who went, didn't do well, came back and is now stuck. So it was like
Oh,
that's the only thing we know about like computer science. Like it doesn't work. You should go be a doctor. So I did a gap year because of that. Because I still applied for medicine,
oh,
although I wasn't
really?
gonna get in. Yeah. So
Oh,
I did a
wow.
gap year because of that. Because they were insisting on medicine. But the thing was that gap year I feel like was extremely influential in how my university education played out. I remember being sad And I remember very well, it was like a night. So Gamali lived in the next town. So if you have Voltaire on this call, so I lived in Jericho, but Gamali lived in the town called Teddy. That was like some 15, 20
Mhm.
minutes drive from my town. And at the time, I had no internet at home. So after school, I would go with him to his house because he had internet and then use his iPad to like read up on the things he was telling me, apply for the scholarships and competitions that he was, asking me to apply to. And around that time, I was moping about the fact that, oh, my friends had got admission and, I'm not in the university and I'm sad. And he told
Yeah.
me, like, if you play this right, this might be one of the most influential years in your life. He said those words to me. I didn't get it, right? But then he went on to then take me along to like all kinds of events. Ideally, like a lot in the background ecosystem. So I remember I met Patrick Iwa, Atos and Apia, Edward Tego, like a bunch of the people, like Ariam Teria, a bunch of the people in the Ghanaian ecosystem now who are considered like OGs and charting the path for like technology innovation, doing like really cool stuff. I got to interact with a lot of those guys when I was like, I don't know, 18, 17. And that year really, really shaped how I thought about the world. And two, what I thought I was going to get out of my university education. Because I was meeting people who were not necessarily, who were doing things that wasn't in the courses that they studied in school. So these guys were building companies, were building startups. But most of the time, it had nothing to do with their formal education. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized that, oh, the real value of going to university wasn't for the degree, but it was to build a viable set of skills that are monetizable afterwards, right? To
Yeah.
become like a valuable individual. So that changed how I saw the world. So when I got into tech, I didn't come to get grades. My CWA, my
Yeah.
average was at the exact same point from first year to final year, just maintenance. I was
Wow.
not interested in being top of the class. I was not interested in like, I just had to stay in the school environment and not get kicked
Yeah.
out,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
that I can then leverage all the opportunities. So I think at the time, the computer science department in tech wasn't as vibrant. Um, and I think, well, I don't know if I can take credit for this, but I think our year batch was what kicked things off, like 2013.
Okay.
I organized a hackathon. I was very eager to get my class to see what I'd seen before coming to school. Because most of my class were like what we call medical rejects. They didn't want to do computer science, they just kind of fell into it. Um, but I was kind of prepping for it and I knew the advantages. So, I was hosting hackathons, I was doing sessions, I was talking to the class. So I was really eager to like build value for myself, right? And in the university experience, I tried everything. Volunteering, I did ambassadorship programs with Microsoft, marketing competitions, spoken word poetry, stage design. Like, if I had an interest, I was going to pursue it because my primary goal was to find out where my strengths were and where I can really build value, right? So while most of my friends like over index on classwork, I was
Yeah.
really, really trying to just like figure out what I enjoy doing, what I could be good at, right? So that eventually led me to hackathon. Around my second year, that Dream Over organized in collaboration with Stanbic Bank, and
Hmm.
we won an award for like I think the most
Yeah.
creative idea or something like that, and that got me an internship at Dream Over. So I mentioned earlier how within those
Oh, yeah.
first year, I realized that although I was in a computer science class and I had a head start, my brain didn't function like a computer science person because I still struggled to like grasp some things that I've not read before, right? And this guy's from some percent
Yeah.
boys in my class.
Yeah.
So shout out to the percent boys. I don't know what they feed you guys in that school, but some percent boys in my class who who apparently had no programming knowledge or whatsoever. It seemed like they were grasping concepts quicker than I was. So for me, that
Quickly.
was like,
Yeah.
I don't think this is my spot. But I still wanted to stay. So in the middle of all this, there was a place called the Tech Hub in KNAC. That was an incubation hub funded by Vodafone. I think it eventually died
Yes.
off. But I used to hang out. I used to sleep there. I wouldn't go to class. So there was Speaking Wood, Aloysius Atta, M Notify,
Yeah.
like so
The
many, so
squad.
many cool businesses out. Exactly, right?
Ronald and all those squad. I used to go there myself in 2013. So we probably, yeah, I organized
Yeah,
my
no,
TEDx event there as well.
I knew you
Yeah.
from tech. Yes, I know you from tech
Yeah.
because we've interacted a few times around the TEDx event,
Yeah.
especially. Um, yeah,
So one of the
but
people who were sleeping there, I remember the space of wow, PK and all this.
yeah. So MPK was also like another influential person because in this exploration journey, he was the one who actually started introducing me to like professional design. So I played with design
Oh,
before in high
okay.
school, and like Microsoft
Mm,
PowerPoint and all these different things. But he was the first person that introduced me to Adobe Illustrator. That was like my first pro design tool, and gave me like my
okay.
first design task. So, and it was around the same time that I was considering, okay, what do I do now? Because I'm not as good as these guys. I don't think I'm ever going to be as good. So then I found design, and then I was around people like BK, Aloysius, and the rest. And again, these people were trying to build startups, so I was always getting exposed. So being in that space, being introduced to design, my curiosity was piqued. And then when I got the internship at Dream Mobile, I met the first real life UI UX designer in Ghana. I've read about them in books, I've seen people. And at the time, everybody was like, if you're a computer science student, you have to code. Nobody will hire you just for design. But then I went to Dream Over for my internship and I met this dude that he was still writing code, but his primary designation was to be a UI UX designer. Um, and that was the point I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm not going to be a dev. Like, I'm going to be a UI UX designer. Like, that's the thing. So I came back from that. I came back from that internship and then instantly became known as a design guy. So in the computer science department at the time in KNUST, so these are like 2014, 2015. If you wanted anything design, I was the guy, right? Because I was the only
Oh,
person that's like,
wow.
okay, I'm doing design, but I am staying in computer science as a designer. So I
Wow.
did enough coursework to get by, but then
Of course.
all my time was spent learning UI UX design. And then the other interesting thing that started pushing me to where I am right now was in my final year, third year going to final year, I decided to enroll in a competition by Unilever. It was called the Unilever Africa Idea Trophy. So this was a marketing competition that Unilever hosts for university students, and they typically use it to like fetch out the next talent and really interesting stuff like
Mm.
that. And the reason I applied was because I I don't like competition. Um, one of my one of my favorite authors is Peter Thiel, and he has this quote that was sensational, like, "My competition is for losers." Right? I heard that in high school when I was reading, Guy Kawasaki, the Facebook story, and when I heard that quote, it stuck with me because I always want to be one of one. Like I don't like being like one of the best, or I don't like. I always want to be in a position where like I'm always in a league of my own. So I actively avoided competition throughout my entire university. Like I won't apply to anything except I knew I had a ridiculously unfair advantage to win. Like that's the only. But then I realized in my third year that that may be a problem, right? Because I also know enough at the time to know that the world is not all sunshine and roses. You're going to have to compete with people at some point. So I told myself, okay, I didn't want to leave university without having that experience of a competition, like a real competition. Um, I used to be a competitive debater in high school. So I've experienced like, debating, going on stages, that kind of stuff. But when I came to university, I didn't
Yeah.
want to do any of that. So around my third year, I decided to apply for this competition because a friend, McLean Arthur, had applied the year before and then got in and it looked cool, right? So I'm like, let me do it. So I filed the application last minute and then I got, into the first selection stage. And then some of my friends, Kojo Amo, Josephine Kusi, I hope I got the name right. Some of my friends helped me put like
Yeah, I
an
remember
idea
Josephine
together.
as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So some of my friends helped me put an idea together, and I got selected, and I got into the competition proper, right? Um,
Wow.
and although I got in a competition, I still wasn't really competing, but that's a story for a different day. But we went on to win the national championship, and then we're going to
Wow.
represent Ghana in South Africa for the regionals. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to London, which was the goal. Um,
Oh, wow.
but that was the second point for me because it was the first time my creative ideas were being acknowledged.
Mm.
Because this competition was done, among different schools, and these were hosted by like marketing professionals, right, who were like doing marketing. And the fact that a bunch of pros who were doing this for a living saw my creative ideas and decided it was one of the best of the bunch, gave me a huge confidence boost in my ideas as a creative person. So I remember part of the prize was I won an iPhone 6S. And when I came back to school, I went on this photography spree. But then I came back with confidence in my creative abilities like I've never had. Like I
That's a
can't
big deal.
emphasize, Yo, it was. It's like to date, it's still one of those things that I can't ever forget. Like I came back with such a boost and belief in my creativity that I was like, okay, I think I am a creative, like certified, right? It's not just in my head. Somebody
Yeah.
else, somebody else had known like, okay, you're a creative person. So I did the design thing, and then I did this competition. So by the time I got to my final year, I knew I was not a logical, arithmetic, logarithmic thinker, but then I was a creative and systematic person in that sense. So then one of the things I also believe is like go all in on your strengths. So I decided, okay, that's a path I'm going to pursue. And because I've been practicing towards university, in 2017, I was one of the few people who were UI UX designers and had experience.
Mm.
And now at the
Yes.
same time, that was when the Ghanaian technical system started realizing that, oh, we need a UI UX. It became a thing. So I was hot.
Yeah.
I had opportunities
Oh,
because it's like,
all the opportunities were coming.
yo, it was crazy. Everybody wanted to like, we need a UI UX designer for this, for that. And for me, although all that was happening and it was cool, I'm a very stubborn person. So I decided that none of that was good for me. I'm going to go back to KNUST. So I had a few offers. There was a company that I eventually ended up working for who offered to hire me, give me national service. I could have gone to Unilever as part of their next leadership program to become a marketer. And I think I had like one other offer for national service. And I said no to all of them and applied to UITS for my national service. Because I had a clothing brand idea in my third year that I couldn't really pursue.
Hey, it's nice you.
Charlie, I had a clothing brand idea that I couldn't pursue. That I was like, okay, maybe I should go back and pursue this idea, right? Um, so crazily, I said no to everything. Went back to KNST, and then in trying to pursue idea, realized just how much it actually took to build a business, right?
Mm.
But the funny thing is that madness didn't stop. I still was somehow delusional about the fact that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I was planning to then graduate and still try to build something on my own.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend at the time, who's not my wife, she looked at me and she was like, I don't think you're ready to go out on your own yet. Because I've watched you over the last year and you've actually been less productive, although you've had more time. So I
Oh,
think you should go
that's
work.
profound.
Yeah. So she was like, I think you should go work somewhere. I know eventually you're the entrepreneur type, so you have your own thing, but I don't think there's a time. I think you should go work somewhere, gain some experience, and then when you're ready, start your own thing. And around the same time, one of the companies that reached out to me and I said no to came back again. Because by providence,
Okay.
a friend of mine happened to be working there and they told her they needed a UI UX person and then she brought my name up and they were like, oh, but we reached out to him before. He said no. So she called me and she was like, yo, Eldad, I think you should come to this place. So the friend is Ella. So she was like, I think you should come to this place. And I'm like, okay, I trust this lady. If she's there, she said I should come. Why not? So I took the interview, I got it. So this was 2017, 2018. So this was like, national 2018. I took the interview and I got the job. And when I came to the office for the first time, it felt like a scene out of like a movie. It was an incredible office space with like standing desks and
Wow.
like MacBooks and like wireless headsets.
Ooh.
And I was like, wait, this is where you work? I'm in,
Wow.
right? So I took the job. My national service, I think 2 months early. So I didn't stay till national service was over. Like I left in August. I moved to Accra. And again, me moving to Accra was the whole thing. I didn't have a place to stay, but let's not get into that. But I moved to Accra and I took this job. And that was another key milestone because this company was founded by, I don't know if one of these things, but it was founded by a good friend of mine, who's now a good friend of mine. And the guy's a visionary in my opinion. Like he's very hidden, very quiet, but I've met very few people in Ghana who are like visionaries who put their money where their mouth is and are willing to make impact. So he wanted to really build like a unique team of young people who could do like really extraordinary things because he was a web developer himself. He had built some really cool stuff. And he was doing well for himself and he made an investment in building the space. But up until then, they were a purely like developer driven entity. There was no design. So when I came in, he was like, okay, you are the design guy, right? And not just saying that, give me resources. Friends,
Wow.
everything I needed, if I could explain why, I got.
Wow.
A new MacBook,
It's
a new
amazing.
Wacom tablet, full subscription to like Creative Cloud. When I
Ooh.
went there, I was like, there were no whiteboards in the office. I'm like, if you're going to be a design agency, we need whiteboards. Like,
You need, yeah.
like, are you sure? Um, and the next week, like 2 conference rooms, all like installed with whiteboards. And that's like one of the key things that I feel like for me has stuck with me, right? So it's like we need to give people opportunity and to enable them with resources, right? So
Exactly.
man, I got everything, right? Like the
Wow.
only thing is I got the opportunity and I got all the resources. It's like just go do it. And the first year was successful, and then we kind of facelifted the design of the company, and he saw progress,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, okay, I want you to do more. So now he was asking me to hire one more person, right? So by
Oh.
2019, I'd gone from being the only designer to like having like one person. Um, and man, during that time, I'll be in the office like 6 days a week
Wow.
because it was a fantastic space. There was cereal in the kitchen. There was
Oh, so that's
AC
free food.
24/7 light. Oh, bro, yo, and and to be quite honest, I didn't come from the most financially, abundance background. I got by and I
Yeah.
got the things I needed, but like I was hungry to hustle and to grow myself. So when I saw the opportunity, I said no to absolutely everything. So although I had demand, I figured out somehow by the grace of God, this is where I could learn the most.
The most, yeah.
So I said no to everything. I didn't take any side
Mm.
jobs. I didn't apply to anything. I was solely focused on like serving that company and what they wanted. Um, and that was a game changer because I learned a lot. So that's when I learned to be like the individual thinker. And then I started building a team.
Mm-hmm.
So by 2019, yeah, late 2019, I had a team of like maybe 3 or 4 other designers from just being like
Mm.
one designer. And
Yeah.
good design became one of the key propositions of that company. They were called Code Out at the time. It became like
Okay.
one of the key propositions and what made us stood out, right? And that moment felt for me felt like the culmination, right? So at this point, I learned a lot, experimented a lot, but now I was being put in front of real business, cases, and I was being given all the
Yeah.
resources I needed, human resources, and like financial and tools and all this. So at this point, I was forced into leadership, right? Now,
You have to lead.
I yeah, I have to, and quite frankly, I'm not a stranger to leadership because like I'm usually the mastermind pulling people together. I've been doing it my entire life. High school, university, I was always organizing things, music crews, like product teams, start like I'm a charismatic person and I tend to be able to like rally people around. So I was used to, starting my own initiatives. But this was different because it was somebody else's money and I was answering
Yeah.
to somebody else on
The
their own
stakes are
goals and
higher.
objectives, much higher, right? Um,
Yeah.
so up until this point, my entire focus has been just getting the work done, right? I was a great thinker and I love coming up with ideas, but I hadn't been forced to think strategically about anything to deliver
Mm-hmm.
results consistently, right?
Yes.
But now, with a team of 4 people and a boss to represent, report to, and clients to satisfy, I had to become the strategy guy, right? Because I quickly realized that it was not just about doing the work. It's like, okay, how do we now communicate, what we need to do? What's the plan? What's the goal? What are the components of getting us there? What could hold us back,
Mm.
right? I started asking those questions. So I think around 2019, middle 2018, no, middle 2019 to early 2020, I started reading a lot. And I'll reach out to people on LinkedIn and just ask questions. And I got recommendations for books. I bought online courses. I was really just trying to grow my thinking because now I realized that, oh, okay, it wasn't just about doing the technical work. I needed to have quality of thought in a predictable, consistent manner, right? So 2019, 2020 was where like my strategic thinking started really coming through. And at this point, like brand was it was an inevitable part of the game because I had helped, build a company's brand at the time. I'd done that for like a bunch of businesses we worked for, mostly startups. and it seems to be the number one requirement for most of the people that will come to ask they wanted branding. So now I had to start, think about it properly. And because I was, very used to the internet all the way back from like high school, I lived on there. I read anything I could find, watched anything I could
Everything
find.
you could, yeah.
Yo, it was crazy. I got an Audible subscription and I was just obsessed with like, okay, what is this thing? I really want to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think I started making progress and started realizing that, oh, okay, there was a technical side of things, which is doing the work, and there's a strategic side of things, which is figuring out, what needs to be done, why it's important, and the components of getting there. And I quite enjoy that even more than doing the technical work myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lot more.
That's
So
yeah, that's interesting. And like Eldad, I wanted to you said something profound before you continue. Was you had an opportunity to, let's say, work for other companies, but you stuck with where you could learn the most. And I that for me caught my attention, because a lot of times when young graduates leave school, right? Of course, there's a financial burden, sometimes the expectations to support financially at home. So there's that temptation to, when you're trying to make a decision, to just go for where they're going to pay you, right?
Yeah.
Even it means that you're not going to grow, right? And I think that for me it's really testament, in my view, to where you are today, because you decided to stick to a place where you could grow and contribute the most and not just follow the money. That really caught my attention.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. And like, I think I still do that to today, and it may not necessarily be to learn, but it's like, where is the most potent long-term outcome, right? And oftentimes that's not money. Like I tell, one of the things I live by is like, money is a byproduct of value, right? Like you get given money because you're taking somebody's problem away, and they value that the solution more than the money, right? So even till date, one of the metrics I use to make decisions like, where am I creating the most value long term? And if that means taking less money, I will. If that means, being 2 years late, I will, because I do believe in the long term, and I try to like always place now, like, what does 10 years look like from now, right? What does 5 years, 20 years look like from now? Yeah, so that decision stuck with me, and it's been like a guiding light. Even like the projects I do, clients I take, things I say yes to, things I say no to. Like I'm always trying to look for, because man, money is so fleeting. Like again, we could talk about
Yeah.
it for like so many hours, but I think money is so fleeting, and I think too many young people. I was on a call with somebody earlier today, and I was telling him that too many young people get caught up on money, right? And I'm like, bro, money's not the thing. Like being valuable is the thing, right? So if you can crack that,
Exactly.
like money will find you. I mean, it will be slow, but like eventually money will find you, and you'll be able to stay with it sustainably, because it was not the destination, and you built like. See, I'm gonna be 1000% honest. I am sitting, like, this is my home office. I'm sitting on my Milan chair. I'm using a Japanese standing desk with like a contraption. Bro, I didn't pay for any of this.
Any of the
When I was finally leaving that company, COVID had happened. At that time, I was too IC, pretty much running the place. Long story, but I ended up deciding to like terminate my contract. My boss was just like, keep it, because I took one of the setups home.
Oh, okay. To work, yeah.
Right? Yeah, because I was doing so much for the team at the time. I would just like keep it, right? Now, the thing I keep telling people is that if I were to want to work for these things, I'd have spent a lot more money trying to acquire them, right? But I created so much value for somebody that it was like, you know what, just
you deserve it. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So I'm like,
and yeah, that's important. And Eldad, I wanted to add something, because something that you also said, I think, or looking at your journey, that has been quite profound, is that for all my guests that I have, there is always that moment where they met someone, like in your case, Gameli, for example, like and it's not just you. I've met. I also saw Harry Agricole also mentioning. He has had so much impact in people's lives, right? How important, and this just how important is like mentorship to young people, right? From your experience, how important is mentorship? Because at that stage, like you said, our parents, or at least my parents, and likewise yours, they have not really had the exposure. So all they know is this myopic, if you do science, you have to do medicine, right? So, but that mentorship that you had, from Gameli really ensured that you kind of had the option to explore other skill sets and other potential that you had. So how important is mentorship at that stage, especially?
I think it's crucial. Like I don't it's so I think it's so important because like you said, it's not just me. I can name like 6, 7 people, right? There's Harry, there's
Yeah.
Sokiti, there's
Yeah.
Kizito. Like there's so many guys from Ketan school around the time Gamali was there who, because they interacted with him and he was able to give us information, like our lives went in a completely different direction because of that. So I think
Yeah.
like mentorship is so crucial at the early stages, right? Like at the high school, junior high school levels, where it's like kids are still trying to figure out, okay, what do we do, right? To have somebody who is like, oh, I think you should consider this, or I've observed, you and the way your brain works. I think you should, read this, watch this video. Like, and for me, I can say it's not so even it's not just Gamali. It's so my boss that I work for, he was also a mentor. Like, because he at the time he told me things like, "Yo, all that in Africa, technology is not business. Technology is a corollary to improve business efficiency. So you need to figure out the business first before you build tech." Like, those are things that he would tell me that I didn't understand, but now I'm like, "Oh, I get it." Right? But he planted the seed. So for me, I'm like, we need to create more avenues to mentor people. And if you're listening to this and you can, you need to seek out as many mentors as possible, right? Like you don't have to know them personally. I'm glad to know people that I can call on the phone and ask questions. But I think it's crucial. I think it can be the difference. It's almost like you're at the junction, right? And without the right mentor, you will get to the destination, and I get there 6 years later because they could have told you, hey, this way, right?
True.
Instead of you, trying to chug you through. So I think it's crucial, and also is the reason why I think a lot of young people should shut up more and listen in Ghana. Because like I had the same issue, right? Like I thought I knew it all, right, on the book. Until I started talking to people and I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about the Ghanaian business ecosystem. Like this is not Silicon Valley. This is Africa. Right? Like, and just the ability to go like, okay, maybe there's something I'm missing out. And then listening first, I think is crucial. So I think mentorship is crucial. I think a lot of young people should be encouraged to value it. I think we should create as many avenues as possible to create a mentorship programs, which is why Barcamp is an incredible idea. So I'm happy to see he's back and he's more active now. I think it's the most important thing. And if you can find a mentor, please spend the time on social media to find people whose mindsets you think you can mimic, right? Like that's, so we should create more spaces. And since my experience with Gamali, I vowed to share as much as possible with anybody that I met. So I talk a lot on my Instagram about some of these things we're talking about, value, resources. I'm in a creative space, so I spend a lot of time talking to designers about the design side and the business side of things. Because again, that's something I got the opportunity to learn that a lot of people haven't learned. And I just try to share as much as possible because I realized it was somebody's willingness to share as much as possible with me that put me on a path to do the things I'm doing now. So when I meet somebody who is curious and open, it's an opportunity for me to go like, hey, based on what I've seen, here's some resources, talk to this person, check this person out, maybe follow this guy. They might help you like improve your thinking. So I think it's crucial. And again, if you're an older person that is listening to this as well, like actively seek to mentor younger people around you who are open, right? Like, because I think sometimes also it's like the older people want to wait, to be asked. But that's the thing about somebody, like, he wasn't waiting for it. He was just giving the information, and if you wanted it, you can take it. And should I say this? Okay, I'm saying, and I have people who were in Kita school with me at the time who thought like those of us hanging around Gamali like were weird.
Yeah, the nerds.
Exactly, right? But at university, I have some of them telling me, "Yo, I wish I'd done the same thing." Because I'm looking at some of you now, and you guys seem to have figured a lot of things out. Like meeting Gamali, I always say puts me 10 years ahead of my peers. Like categorically, I think I've always been a decade ahead of all my peers just because of the information you gave me and the breadth of that information. Yeah, man. So I think it's crucial. Seek it out. We should give it often. If we have the resources to facilitate spaces for mentorship, I think, and it's lacking right now, man. Like we can talk about this for days, but I think it's so crucial, and we need to do a lot more. Try to create apparatus for like mentorship all around.
So these days, what do you do? And I want us to, because of time, let's talk about building a winning brand strategy. First of all, tell us what you do currently, right? What keeps you busy, and then can you link that, because I know what you do is linked to brand strategy. Can you link that to this question? I'm a business watching people who inspire today. How do I build a winning brand strategy? That is like the number one question that people have on there. How do I even do it?
Yeah, the answer is shockingly simple though, but we'll get to it. Right now, what I do is a hard question to answer. But as of this minute, I'm building a company called Oxygen, and it's a communication company.
Oh, I see the t-shirts you're wearing, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's the company I'm building. It's a communication company. And it's essentially what real businesses communicate with multiple stakeholders. So not just like customers, but investors, employees, any entity that is interacting with your business and needs information about your business to be able to make decisions. That's the objective. How do we help you communicate with all the stakeholders properly? Because a lot of businesses in Africa believe communication is just with the customers, and it's like no, right? Like communication is to your employees, it's to your partners, it's to your your suppliers. Like communication is done all around your supply chain and your ecosystem, and it's not just a tool for customer acquisition. So I kind of learned this from just doing a number of different projects, seeing what has succeeded, what has failed, and also didn't want to build another agency, another design agency, because there's so many of them. So when I was trying to answer the question of like, what's the real problem that I see with businesses in Africa? It's communication. And that feeds into brand strategy because, so here's the answer. That's why I said it's simple. Brand strategy is made up of two words, brand and strategy. So let's talk about that. Brand is basically the perception that you have in your mind about something, right? That's a brand. A brand basically lives in my head as a person. A brand basically lives in your head. So somebody coming on this call and seeing me in braids, looking the way I'm looking, has a particular perception of who I am. That's a brand, right? Based off of your interactions with me, you build a particular perception as a brand. If I bring up like a name like Apple or Casapreco or Ghana Commercial Bank, even if I bring up like Ghana right now as a country, there is a set of associations that pop up in your head, right?
Yeah.
And those associations is their brand, right? So that's why I try to tell all business owners, like your brand is the perception that your customers or your stakeholders and the people that are observing outside of you form independently of you, right? That's the brand. And branding is everything you do to create, influence, and sustain that perception, right? Because there are certain people, certain individuals, certain entities that have been able to create a certain perception, a certain image for themselves, and over the years have been able to consistently reinforce that image, so much so that everybody almost has no option than to accept that that's who they are. Right? So branding is the set of things that you do to enable you create that perception and to sustain it over time till it becomes inevitable. So everybody's like, oh yeah, we know, yeah, this is this guy, Ghana there is corruption, or like Apple is great design, or like so that's what brand is, and that's what branding is. Strategy is a decision about where you want to go and a clear steps of actions of getting there, and systems and policies to support that step in action. Right?
Okay.
So I have a clear definition of where I want to go. There are steps that I want to take to get there, and there's some guiding policies to make sure I stick to those steps to get to that result. So if you put the two things together, brand strategy is basically one, how do you first determine the image that you want to create as a business in the mind of your customer? that means that you first have to know who your customer is, to know what image is going to be impactful for them and profitable for you. Right? Say that one more time. If you're creating a brand strategy, it's first determining, okay, what image do I want to create in the mind of the customer? But that means you need to know who the customer is, their needs, their wants, their fears, their desires, what image or positioning will appeal to them, but will also be impactful for you as a business. There's no point in creating an image if it doesn't benefit you, right? So that's basically what brand strategy is that definition of like, how do we want to look? How do we want to sound? What image do we want to occupy in the mind of the customer? And then what are the steps? What are the different components and ingredients that we're going to put into that to help us create that image and to sustain it over time? And how do we ensure that once we define those steps, we're actually able to stick with them and be able to deliver, right? So if I walk into a company right now, or if you're running a small business, the questions that you should be trying to answer is like, who is the customer? What problems do they have? What image do you want the customer to have of you? What are you doing currently to sustain that image? If you can answer those questions, you have a brand strategy, right? Because the answers to those questions is now what's going to guide the things that people will normally consider branding, which is what's your logo, what's your color, what does your website look like? All that stuff is stemmed from what image do we want to create, what perception do we want to hold in the mind of the customer. So if I want to position myself as, maybe the cool hip brand in the mind of the customer, then there's a certain decision I'm going to make around my colors, around my logos, around the words that I speak. That will then help me create that image. And then I have to consistently. So this is the part where I think a lot of businesses mess up. It's not just like branding is not in the definition, right? Everybody's like, oh, I want to be this. Like that's a statement. Maybe that's your ambition at best, right?
Yeah.
But branding is the actual process of behaving in a way that delivers on that image you want to create.
Okay.
So most companies will say something about maybe they are welcoming and they are people first, right? Maybe that's the brand. That's what they put on their website. But then when you call somebody and somebody picks up the phone, it's not welcoming at all.
Yeah, it's not welcoming. Yeah, not
right?
living up to the image, right?
So in that case, that's what we call a fraud, right? Fraud is basically somebody that's told me they are A, but then in reality, that's not who they are. So there are so many businesses that are portraying images that they don't live up to. And what that does is, after I've encountered, so these are branding words. Let's say you, Prince, you came to this call with a certain expectation of, what you're going to hear, what you're going to learn, maybe based off of my videos, right? Now let's take it for a second that all those videos I've been posting, they're not from me. Somebody writes them and I read it.
And then
right? Based off of all the things you've already seen that I've told you, you have a certain expectation. Now,
yes,
if I get on this call and I don't behave in a way that corroborates that perception, I create doubts and that image is gone. But if I get on this call and I behave in a way that actually supports the perception you already have, I reinforce that image, thereby making sure it persists. And then if I do that enough times, when you are talking to somebody about me, you're going to translate that image as, okay, this is a kind of
the
person
same image,
right?
Yeah.
So that's basically what branding is. So brand strategy is like, I want to create a modern communication company, like for African business, because I think it's important. That's what I want to do. We are like my company. The goal is to be different. Is to be very contextual to the African market, actually understand what's happening and what needs to be done, and be very innovative in the way that we approach things, right? I look the way I look for a certain reason. Like these braids are not common for most Ghanaian business owners, right? Like now, like
yes, exactly.
I did it on a whim. I did it on a whim one time. I liked it. I realized it made me stand out in the places I go. I kept it, right? That is a conscious effort to cultivate an image. I'm on this call and I'm wearing like this thing with oxygen written on it. Oxygen is at the end of every single video, right? Like I'm cultivating a certain image. Like that is the process of branding, right? At least visually. So even for myself as a person, the way I show up every single time on the internet, the way I show up when people meet me is creating a certain image, right? Now, that
Okay.
image is defined based on who I think my customers are, the kind of people I want to attract, right? And the benefits that I want to be able to give them slash get from them, right? So, like, it's important to know that it's not something you hide in your room and go like, oh, this is the image I want to make feel like, right? Ultimately you're trying to reach an audience, so it's very important for you to know who that audience is and what they resonate with. So a true brand strategy is at the intersection of your own unique thinking and observation as like the business and the audience you're trying to serve and their desires,
Hmm.
their fears, their needs, their wants. That's where like true brand strategy lies, right? There's no one or the other. If they're just
Hmm.
like saying everything that a customer is saying, there's really no strategy there. And if they're just saying everything that you want to say, it's like, how do we get to the results that we want to get, right? And it's important because if done well, you and I have the same insight into the market. If let's say we are both running a communication company and we both actually go out and talk to customers, which most people don't do, by the way. We both actually go out and talk to customers, we will at best get the same data, right? So if we just come back and take everything the customer is saying as our brand positioning, then what makes us unique? Because you got the same information as me, right? So my
Yeah,
unique
that's true.
insight as a business is what then creates that differentiation. It's like, oh yeah, we are all building. That's what I say we're an agency. I say we're a communication company because that's my positioning, right? Somebody could
Yes.
look at the things we do very much and go like, oh, this is an agency. But I'm like, no, I want people who say we have communication problems and it spans more than just doing the design, right? So that's my positioning. And then I now behave in a way to actually corroborate that, right? So that's what I'm saying. At least it sounds simple to me. I know that because I do it, it may not sound simple, but I hope I was able to make it clear, like what a brand is, what
Yeah,
branding
yeah.
is, what strategy is, and how those two things are able to like work together.
No, exactly. I think you and the examples you gave like really kind of answered what I had in mind, because when I think of a winning brand strategy, like you rightly said, um, in my mind there has to be some perception. So you are trying to influence the perceptions that people have, and
Mhm.
then when people juxtapose the perception with reality, there shouldn't be any delta, right?
Yeah,
It's either you exceed their perception, or at least it should be at par with the
yeah,
perception. And I
yeah.
I read a book by Dr. Joseph Pine when he was talking about the experience economy, and so
Mhm.
he essentially posits that we have moved from we moved from the agrarian economy to the industrial economy, then where we moved to the service economy,
Mhm.
and then he is now saying that we are in the experience economy, where the predominant economic offering is experiences, right? So it's no longer, like you said, two companies these days. It's easy to, for example, produce a bottle of water, but what would make someone remember buying this bottle of water would be, let's say, the shop attendant smiling at them. So you leave an
Yeah,
impression, right? They will have an experience. So it's the same bottle of water which has been commoditized, but the experience that you live with people then becomes
mhm.
so crucial. So my last question, because our time is up, would be how does oxygen, for example, help in this process you've described? How does oxygen help a company to ensure that the perception, one, is created, and then two, that the experience juxtaposed with the perception is at least equal or even exceeding the
Cool.
perception? How does your company help other entities do this?
Yeah. So the first practical is the strategy bit, which is just sitting with the company, sitting with the team, or whoever is leading it, learning what they are, what they're doing, where they're trying to go, what their goals are, and start the process of defining, okay, based off of your goals and the markets that you're trying to serve, what is the image that we need to create? How do we need to position you, right? So that's typically like the first thing that we do, or the first practical that we help. So that looks like, we call it strategy sprint. So it might be like 2 or 3 days, either virtual or in person, where we are talking to like the team, the key people in the company, trying to really understand who are you, what do you offer, who are you trying to serve, where's the intersection, where like the unique perceptions. For some people, that is enough because they have their own in-house team. But then for most companies, we then take them through the entire step of, like implementation. So let's say we did a strategy, we'll now create your what we call the visual identity, right? So let's create your logos, let's build your brand system visually, let's pick your colors, your type, let's write some words, let's decide how you're going to communicate. And then as part of that process, we also train your team on how to be able to, we call it governance, right? How to be able to steward this brand through the entire process, right? And then each step in the communication value chain, we actually have services. So website design and development, photography, videography, sound production, audio. So basically all the key things that you need to communicate after strategy is done. When a company is like, hey, we actually want you to go the long mile with us, we take them through every single step of the implementation. That could take sometimes like 6 months, that could take sometimes like 12, 18 months, depending on the company, really. And some people keep us on, but for some companies, we'll train and then hand off, right? So we'll roll with them for a bit, roll out the project, and then it's like, okay, now let's train and then, hand off. So those are for the people that we do the entire line out for. So strategy, brand identity design, visual communication, website, photography, videography. We build technology as well, but as long as it pertains to communication, like we're not building apps,
yeah, payment
yeah.
app.
No. But if it's communication technology, if it's like maybe a tool for an event, something, a USSD code that allows you to get information, those kinds of things, like that's what we consider building. So that's kind of what we do. And then I spend a lot of time also just talking to incubators, so MES and Chelsea, kind of helping some of the early businesses figure out how to leverage some of these principles that we teach like businesses how to leverage that at a very, very early stage to start building their own businesses. So if a company is like, we want to communicate better, we want to like get to our customers with a clear message and be able to like properly keep that message going for a bit, we're typically the entity that can help them go from step 1 to step 10 and kind of be with you all the way through delivering all those different things. So yeah, that's how we do that right now.
Yeah, and how do people get in touch with Oxygen? Is there a page or website and number, or you can share
so
with us?
If you go to oxygen.com, so oxegene.com, that's our website. There's a button that says contact. We keep things very simple. So you hit that button, it opens an email, send us an email. I'm typically like representing the brand online as well. So Eldad Nutakor, wherever you can find me, you can just shoot me a DM. And then my email is also eldad@oxygen.com. So eldad@oxygen.com. So you can reach me on that as well. My name is Eldad Nutakor everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So if you find me there, you find the company. So that's that's who we are.
It's been exciting, Eldad, and I really appreciate the fact that you made time to speak with us. I wanted to share there are like two comments that I wanted to share on the screen. So one is from Harry Agliko. He said, very fond memories, Eldad. Gameli had played a huge role as a mentor in our lives. Proud of how far you've come. So there's some shout outs from Harry. And then Abdul Samed Hassan says, very impressive. So he's very much impressed also with your journey so far. And for me, that's the import of people who inspire. That at the end of the day, you watch this episode, you understand the journeys that people have been on, and the fact that you may have gone through a similar journey, or you may be going through a similar process. You don't give up. And if you want to reach out to Eldad, to his company Oxygen, I've put the website on the screen, oxygen.com, and his email is eldad@oxygen.com. So it's quite easy. You could also, hit him up on LinkedIn. Eldad Nutakor is his name there, and then you can always get in touch with him. Eldad, do you have any final words before we wrap up?
I don't know who's watching, but I like to I have two opinions right now that I like to share everywhere I go. And one is just, I think more Africans need to build solutions for Africans as a general ethos. And we also need more people supporting African businesses do that properly. Because there is a lot of trying to copy what's happening in the US and replicate it here, but our infrastructure needs systems are so different that businesses are being starved. And it gets more and more clear to me because I literally had a conversation with a business owner a few days ago that was like he thinks the African well he was talking about creatives in particular, but it was like the African creative service ecosystem has let businesses down because businesses can't compete globally from a brand quality perspective because they're not getting the services that they could afford from teams here, right? So, first opinion is I think more Africans need to be building more things for Africa. Second thing is I think we should encourage more people to build cash flowing small businesses instead of VC backed moonshots.
Yeah.
That's my second opinion. And my third opinion is I think if you're Ghanaian and you live in Ghana and watching this, I think you should aim to build something that makes you a million cedis. Your life will be 10 times better if you can do that. And it's more realistic too. So yeah, those are my three opinions and I wanted to share before we close up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Especially there's this whole let's say fantasies that people have that everything has to be a unicorn, right? Every company or every startup must blitz into becoming a unicorn, and all this obsession with unicorns. And our context, like you rightly said, in our context, our economies are run by SMEs. They are run by small to medium scale enterprise, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that the woman who sells roasted plantain should become a unicorn. No, these are women who have taken care of their kids through universities selling plantain. You can learn how to do financial management because it's a going concern, like you talked about earlier, right? Being able to ensure that you are consistent. If my mother sells whatever maize at the market, and she's done it for 20 years, it's not a fluke, right? There's totally agree with you on that, Eldad. And I really want to say a big thank you for making time to be on People Who Inspire. I want to thank all of you, those of you who tuned in, spend quality 1 hour with us to understand Eldad's journey and also what his company does and what brand strategy is all about. I wish you a great weekend.
Likewise, right? Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. Bye.
Yes.